So if you've been following the channel for any sort of time now, then you may have heard me talk about digital minimalism, whether through a video or a comment, and this is because over the past year it's become a pretty big part of my digital life. So today I thought I'd share my 5 most important tips for when I was on my quest for digital minimalism, and talk about how it genuinely changed my life. My first tip for you if you're just getting started is to do a fresh install of whatever OS you're running. Before you do this, it's always a good idea to make a backup of essential files and programs. However, I do only mean essentials. I don't mean backup absolutely everything. Otherwise, you're just right back where you started. Starting again can get rid of any of those pesky programs that have been hidden away. Another benefit of doing this is that it also gives your device a nice speed boost. In terms of how to do this practically, I'm not going to be going over that in this video. Everybody uses a different device, but overall, no matter what device you have, getting that fresh install will give you a good base point and will make getting started with digital minimalism significantly easier. Now, the next thing I suggest is that you make a list of all the programs you're going to need, how long you're going to need them for, how often you use them, and this is really helpful and it's pretty much essential for later on. Now that we've got our fresh install, it's a little too easy to go ham and install tons of stuff. What I recommend you do is you make an Excel spreadsheet of all your different apps you need and then go through color coding by how often you actually use it. A good way of visualizing this is green for apps you use every day, amber for apps you use once a week or more, and red for apps that you only ever use every month or so. This is helpful because it visually presents the information and allows us to be a lot more conscious when installing these apps because it gives us a good look on how often we actually use them. After this, we're going to be organizing and prioritizing all of our apps. Now, this is especially important because it makes things easy to find and doesn't compromise functionality for the sake of aesthetics, which is kind of easy to do with digital minimalism. If you're on a desktop, chances are you have a toolbar. So I recommend putting all of your most used apps there. If you don't want to do that or you have some folders, then you can put those on your desktop. This way, it's easy to find your most important things when you need them without having to scroll through the app pages or searching for it. And if you leave it in the same place long enough, then you'll always know where it is. In mine, I have Safari, Chrome, Final Cut, Logic, Xcode, Messages, Notes, iTunes, Lightroom, and Photoshop, as these are the main apps I use on this laptop. If you're trying to do this on a phone, then it's even easier. I recommend using folders, ordering them from most used to least used. I've already done a full video on this, and I'll stick it in the cards now if you want to check that out. But what about the apps that you don't actually use that much? Well, I have a solution for that too. On Windows, I recommend keeping your less used programs in the Start menu, and on Mac, I'd say keep them in the Launchpad. Because we did that sheet earlier, we don't have too many apps here, so nothing will ever be difficult to find. I recommend constantly referring back to that, putting green and maybe some amber apps in the toolbar, and putting most of the amber apps and all of the red apps in the Launchpad or Start menu. All in all, I found clearing up your device to be really useful, and it just makes finding things that much easier. Another big part of digital minimalism is keeping everything centralized, so for this reason, I recommend that you start using cloud-based software. I personally use the Google Docs suite, but different people have different use cases, so I'd recommend looking at the devices you want to be able to access your files on and choosing based on that. I personally use a combination of Windows and Mac computers, and seeing as Google Docs is available on pretty much anything with an internet connection, I just prefer using that. Now, there are plenty of reasons as to why you should do this. Not only does it mean you can access your files on any device with an internet connection, keeping everything centralized, which is a key part of digital minimalism. Another thing is that many also have an offline mode like Google Docs, so you can still access your files from anywhere despite not having an internet connection. Using cloud services where you can also frees up space on your computer, effectively making it faster and leaving more room for stuff that needs to be locally stored. My final tip is just don't go overboard. If you need to have 100 programs on your toolbar and you actually need them, then that's totally fine. For example, I have the Office suite installed despite exclusively using Google Docs, but this is so I can read database files for use with C# projects. Don't get me wrong, it's rare that I need to, but programming is actually one of the main things I use this laptop for, so it makes sense to keep it on there. If you already have 4 different programs that can do this though, try getting rid of all but the one you actually use. And remember, realistically, you don't need Shazam. Now, seeing as I've been a digital minimalist for almost a year now, granted, I have been practicing digital minimalism on my phones before that, but I didn't quite go full digital minimalist until March last year. I want to talk about the impact that it's had on my life. Trying out something like digital minimalism can be quite tricky. I mean, I was the type of person to install a photo recovery app 3 years ago and just totally forget about it until my drive filled up and I had to go through deleting old stuff that barely made an impact because of that 400GB Final Cut file. At the start, I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot of getting used to. Being able to choose what editing software I wanted to use per day, or whether I was gonna write in the Office suite or Google Docs, was nice, but realistically, it wasn't necessary. Once I realized that I could get everything done that I needed to get done with the software I'd purposefully installed, it actually started saving me a lot of time. For example, instead of saying, am I gonna use Final Cut or Premiere today? It's, alright, let's open up Final Cut and do some editing. A big part of what digital minimalism has done for me and why I continue to practice it is because it removes that pointless choice. So I always know exactly what I need to do in every single one of my programs to get my work done, if that makes sense. It also means I've got a lot better and more more efficient in specific software. For example, I've become way faster in Final Cut ever since I started using it as my primary editing software. And while I do still keep Premiere on my desktop because I do sometimes still need it, I'm no longer wasting time in Final Cut trying to transition back from the different key bindings in Premiere. I'm more productive, less distracted, and as an added bonus, my devices run faster. It's not for everyone, you don't have to stick to it, but I will say this. I do recommend trying it out. Maybe try it out for a month, see if you get on with it. If you do, great. And if you don't, you can always go back. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching. Remember to like the video if you want to see more content like this and smash that subscribe button. I'm done for now, and I will see you guys in the next one.